John.
Whoa! You're back.
How are you?
Well, thank you. I'm really excited about talking about Cuckoo's Calling, which when it was revealed who wrote it and such, brought a whole new world of stuff. And we've got as many Cormoran Strike novels now as we have Harry Potter novels. I think it includes at least a contender for the finest book she's ever written, and a whole other world. Certainly, it was just Harry Potter, Casual Vacancy. Wow, what we were going to do with all that.
What gets me really excited is of course I'm friends now with a lot of people who've been with Potter from the early days, and I've heard the stories of the excitement on the lead up to publication day. So we're not there yet, but we're on the series that I have to do a little bit more than just press the buy next in the series button on my tablet.
But by 2018, there were already 3 or 4 Strike novels, right?
Yeah, there was. So I was already chatting on the moderators channel for Hogwarts Professor in the run up to publication of Lethal White, but I hadn't quite caught up by that point. So I was racing to catch up. I mean, I have to say, I had stopped reading for so long. Actually, I struggled to read a book quickly, and now I'm at about 3 books a week. So I've managed to get back to the kind of pace I had when I was doing my A levels at school, about that kind of pace. But it took me a long time to build that up. So I remember the launch of Lethal White, but I wasn't at the front of the queue. I think I still had 1 or maybe 2 books to finish before I could get onto that.
Wow, it's you're so much a part of the world of Rowling studies now, Nick. It's just funny to think of you as a person playing catch up. You're the person that's played catch up and caught to the leaders in the field and done laps around us. Tell us about Rowling's circumstances at the time.
Okay, so Rowling was trying to get published anonymously as Robert Galbraith, and she shared on Twitter some of the rejection slips she's had from some of the publishing houses. There were some clues. So this mysterious Galbraith fella, as an unpublished first author, he would have been quite unusual on the Neil Blair lists. Of course, she had a normal agent represent Mr. Galbraith. As luck would have it, and I'm going to try not to be too cynical, because in our relationship, I feel that's your job, John. And as luck would have it, it was picked up by an imprint of the publisher that published Casual Vacancy. So Mr. Galbraith managed to get the same editor that edited Casual Vacancy.
And you find that credible? Okay, we're just gonna...
As stranger things apparently have happened. But the secret held. So the narrator of the audiobook, Robert Glenister, a superb narrator, and he couldn't strange pronunciation of a couple of names. He got Ilsa wrong in one book, but other than that, did extremely well. Has said he didn't know who the author was. She thanks, in the modern imprint of Cuckoo's Calling, the people at her publisher that worked so hard on the book without knowing who the author was. Obviously, the editor knew exactly who she was. She talks in interviews about the BBC wanted to pick it up as a mini-series, and she was worried at that point that she was going to have to admit, at least to the BBC. And when the news broke, and the news broke in a slightly strange way, because a literary critic got a Twitter from someone she didn't know, she asked on Twitter if anyone had read this book, and somebody replied saying this book was written by J.K. Rowling. Now, I think she must have done a little bit of a background check on the name of this person. And it turns out that this person was married to one of J.K. Rowling's lawyers. And then she thought, well, this is more than just some nutter on Twitter. So she actually had some textual analysis done on the book to try and get some data to demonstrate that this was actually written by J.K. Rowling. Rowling wasn't happy. She said she wanted to get 2 or 3 books out there. She knew she couldn't keep it secret forever, but she wanted to get 2 or 3 books out there to get some what she would consider unbiased feedback on, whether she's worth reading or not. She got some really quite good reviews. Some people, such as Val McDermott, claims that genuinely had no idea who it was, and she was a big supporter of the book. Rowling
that was incredible. That was an incredible endorsement. If it's true that she didn't know, that was a big deal.
Well, Rowling says she actually wrote a thank you note for the blurb of the book in Robert Galbraith's handwriting, which is done using her left hand. And then she had to write, when the story broke, she had to write another one in her own hand saying, no, I really am very grateful, J.K. Rowling.
But this is such a period of Rowling being blatantly dishonest. Because you think that the Times reporter took this seriously because they did some background check on who tweeted her. And that's I think the most plausible explanation. But it could just have been because there were so many rumors that Rowling was writing a detective fiction novel. The editor you mentioned that did Casual Vacancy was most famous as the editor of detective fiction. So I think there's a lot of fiction going on here in terms of what's going, that it was already rumored that she was writing a mystery series. Ian Rankin's wife saw her at a coffee shop writing a detective story. Rankin, blurts that out at a festival. Has to. She forces him to walk that back and deny it. And she denies it. She's asked about it. She denies it. And then when the book comes out, it's not a series. It's not a 7-book series. It's not this and that. It's all, really. If there's a period of public dishonesty in Rowling's life, this is the apex that we know of so far.
I think some of it's going to be inevitable. So if you are going to publish anonymously using a nom de plume, it is difficult to do that and not lie. Even if it's a lie by omission, what you're doing is inherently deceitful. I'm sure that Jo in herself justifies it at a stretch, and that's not probably being incredibly honest with herself, but I think she can stretch a justification for it. I don't think she's said anything which is an outright untruth. I think it can be stretched sometimes quite close to breaking point, but I think there's a justification for everything.
We can agree to disagree on that one. I mean, really, for me, these are harmless lies to protect, a project that she's worked on for years. She says that she has the idea for the Silkworm 8 years before it comes out. I mean, this is a project that she's really had in mind for a very long time. And the charity donations that she made consequent to being outed when people objected to her taking the posture of a veteran. I think she gives very generously to a UK Army fund, Veterans Fund. So, no harm, no foul. To me, that this is when people say you have to believe it because J.K. Rowling said it. I'm like, well, I just No, I don't. That's daft. I'm not saying that she's a liar, but she is a person who sometimes tells lies when it's to her advantage. And again, that's like the Rowling protects her children's identities and activities and stuff like that. Yeah, she does. God bless her for it. Does that make her dishonest? No, it means she's protecting them. As a public, she's the public figure. Her children don't need to be public figures.
No, quite right.
So, yeah. Your first encounter with the book was part of your manic.
Yeah, it was
catch up.
And one of the unfortunate things with a digital copy, which for a long time was my only copy, is I've become aware that I believe the text in that copy has changed twice without informing me that the text has changed. So I think quite famously, a character, an Australian, was inserted into a changing room so that the will would have two witnesses. I'm fairly certain that my copy changed. So the first time I read it, there was only one witness. Second time I read it, there was two witnesses. And I remember a discussion on HogPro. I think before I was very active, but I remember a discussion on HogPro where they discussed this, and they said, well, the trouble is the second witness didn't know what she was signing because the paper was turned over. So that will is still not valid. And now I've just reread the book again. And at the very end of the epilogue, we've got Strike musing. Of course, the will wasn't valid, but the family will have agreed to abide by her wishes.
Yeah, Codex, go Codex.
It's magical. Every time you read the story, it's a different one.
Well, I think of Ibid, the textual master of Rowling's work. That's just gold to him. These editions, collect them all. I mean, seriously, and Cuckoo's Calling is, if that editor is supposed to be the best editor of detective fiction, boy, there's a lot of boneheaded mistakes inside Cuckoo's Calling, which are detailed at Hogwarts Professor, and maybe we'll put the link up for that. But I mean, it's just silly gas. We'll go into a little bit of that, I hope. Anyway, what's the lake point?
What's in the lake? So I was going to reveal and the readers of HogPro will probably know this already. So the real identity of Deeby Mac. So Deeby Mac, the character in the book, is this African American rap star who's coming over to London on the night that Lula apparently commits suicide. He's due to stay in the flat underneath. Fortunately, he's delayed at a party. He hears about the apparent suicide, stays in a very nice hotel, Claridge's. I think I'd rather Claridge's than that marble flat anyway. And that's it. But the book itself is dedicated to the real Deeby Mac. And it's quite some time, actually, until we discovered who that was. And the spur was John asking me who this soldier friend was that Rowling mentioned in the Val McDermott interview. So one of Rowling's oldest friends, and she mentions that she has lots of contacts in the military. So, well, I was fairly certain that was Sean Harris anyway. So I sent some links across to John detailing his military career, very closely in terms of the theatres that he's served in, very closely follows what Strike has done. So Africa, the Balkans, Iraq, Afghanistan, he's been in all of those places. But in UK military circles, the military police, unlike in the US Army, where the military police are universally loved as brothers in arms, in the British military, they're sort of looked down on. Um, and I find it difficult to believe that a sapper, a Royal Engineer, would um, have very much detailed knowledge of either Royal Military Police or SIB internal procedures. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, in 2018, there was a big court case that was in all the newspapers. Actually, it wasn't. It was a tiny court case, but because it involved J.K. Rowling, it was in all the newspapers. This practical billionaire, I think she is a billionaire again now, but she was on her way to making £1 billion again after giving a lot of it away. Was suing a secretary who worked for her for a few tens of thousands of pounds that she claimed this poor unfortunate embezzled. Dreadful optics. So we had quotes from Amanda saying that J.K. Rowling was moody and unapproachable, and it was all grist to the tabloid mill, but nobody really came out of it looking very well. Well, bless the Scottish Court Service. What they do is, even for relatively small cases like this, they publish the judgment in full.
Wow.
And when I say full, probably this judgment was written up in more detail than an awful lot of them just because of who was involved. But the testimony from J.K. Rowling, from Neil Blair, from their office, and the defendant's testimony was typed out pretty closely and summarized by the judge. And from that, we learn about a lady called Diane or Di Brooks. Di Brooks is J.K. Rowling's office manager. And she was actually the one who discovered that Amanda Donaldson was basically stealing from her employer. She discovered this, and probably as a reaction to that, Amanda was accusing Di Brooks and many other people in the office of actually doing the stealing instead. And I suspect that's the reason why Rowling wanted to take it to court rather than just sack her and accept the losses. When you introduce yourself to a judge in the UK, the judge likes to know a little bit of background about you so that it can help him judge how reliable your testimony is going to be. So we learn a little bit about Di Brooks's background. And this is from the judgment summary. Di Brooks, she is the office manager for the Pursuers, that's J.K. Rowling, for her Edinburgh office. So she's the office manager. Prior to that, she was the Pursuers security consultant. And before that, she was a military investigator in the military police. And it's just a couple of sentences, but we have a potted history. So she was in the military police. She was a monkey in the slang that Strike uses. She became a suit. So that's a member of the Special Investigation Branch. And that's what a military investigator is. Then she retires from the army and she becomes a security consultant. Now, I think we spoke, I'm not sure if it was Goblet of Fire or Order of the Phoenix. The moment in Rowling's life when she starts to take things like celebrity and security seriously, and she arranges security organization. Well, Di Brooks joined the security detail sometime between 2002 and 2004, and that's at the very point that she's building this security team. Now, she's not in the security team anymore, which is the reason why in the judgment it mentions we're not going to cover any of the security detail, because that's by necessity secret for the safety of Rowling and family. So she still has this security team, but Di Brooks is no longer in it. But Di Brooks, Deeby Mac, as she's a Scottish lady, Deeby Mac has got to be Di Brooks, an experienced SIB investigator, worked with Rowling for many years as a member of her security detail. She is thanked as the first book is dedicated to her. Cuckoo's Calling's dedicated. Career of Evil and Silkworm, she's in the acknowledgements as Deeby Mac. And then this judgment has been published. So nosy people like me knows exactly who Deeby Mac is. Every subsequent book, she's in the acknowledgements as Di Brooks.
You keep calling her Di Brooks. Are you sure it's not D Brooks?
Now that's a southern assumption. So in the UK, as far south as I am, Diane is always abbreviated as Di. But I'm not sure of Scotland, so you could be right.
Yeah, I think the DB follows me. Anyway, it's what we owe Di or D Brooks will come out probably in the critical biography.
Yeah.
Much like Sean Harris. But we can suspect from the amount of space that she gets in the acknowledgements and the work that you've done, that you say we discovered all the time, you and your tapeworm, because it wasn't anybody else that's done this work, that we've learned that the accurate portrayal of Strike as a monkey, as a suit, comes from someone who lived in those shoes. I mean, there's a suggestion almost that Strike's girlfriend in the while member of the services, and that he was supposed to marry or whatever is DB. But that's a great, that's a great Lake entry, especially because we had so much Lake stuff from the Rowling being outed as the author. The Shed stuff is, I mean, so you went for the key relationships again, but you went for her staff. That was the buoy again. We went from bad dad to the good friend on the staff. I'm going to go with my Shed tool of narrative release and misdirection. The Silkworm was the first Strike novel. According to Rowling, she made a statement to the BBC in an interview at the release of the Silkworm television program adaptation that Cuckoo's Calling was only first because it was a better story to make Strike famous. She said, actually, the plot for Silkworm predated the plot for Cuckoo's Calling. I'd had the idea for that plot, the book within the book, for 7 or 8 years before I wrote it. Now, this means that goes way, way back, right? That often happens with me. I have an idea and I keep it and I sit on it, but I keep it and I play with it like a Rubik's Cube. And there'll come a point where everything clicks and it's ready to be written. I have a lot of notebooks filled with these kind of things. Silkworm was like that. I sat on the plot for a long time. Anyway, I wanted Strike's first case to make him, as it were, I wanted him to solve a very high profile case. The Silkworm wasn't going to achieve what I wanted to in terms of setting Strike up as someone who is much more high profile than he expected to be. Now, there's a suggestion in that, though, that this part just blows my mind. There's a suggestion in that it was kind of like, oh, I have all these stories and I'm just going to put them in an arbitrary order in terms of how it will, create the setting for the plot or something like that. And that's, now that we have 7 of the books, we can realize what, palaver that is. These books are, the first 7 books are so tightly constructed as a ring that it's laughable that the reason that she switched these things was just to make Strike more famous. That the connections between Philosopher's Stone, between Cuckoo's Calling and Lethal White are the subject of several posts that I've written and 1 or 2 that Louise Freeman has written as well. And the connections between Cuckoo's Calling and the 7th book of 10 books really form a latch to close the 7-book ring. And I think I can prove to you, Nick, that there's a latch that Rowling intentionally used that a word for that in the first book to show how it would connect with the last book. So okay, and we've been running really late on these things, so I'm gonna try to go this as fast as I can. Okay, let's go through, the latch between Cuckoo's Calling and Running's Grave, books 1 to 7, in order to prove that Cuckoo's Calling is the deliberate point of origin, not this was going to be somewhere else in the series and I just threw it in there because it served a better purpose. This is, the point of origin for the thing. The first correspondence between Cuckoo's Calling and Running Grave, of course, is between John Bristow and Cuckoo and Abigail Glover in Grove. Both are older siblings who kill their younger siblings when very young. A brother in Bristow's case, a sister in Glover's. In each case, the motive is in essence sibling rivalry. Both children murderers are not related to their sibling by blood, and both feel their parents much prefer the younger child to them. Bristow kills his younger brother Charlie by pushing him into a quarry. Abigail Glover plots to have an accomplice butcher her younger sister and feed her remains to pigs. East gets away with the crime because the father elects to ignore the evidence that his child is a psychopath. Now, there's a lot more. I'll put a link in the, the email message with this video to where this writes up. But what I want to get here is that this is the latch that connects all the books in that 7-book series. And there's a character early on in Cuckoo's Calling who is the victim of a crime committed by her sister, whose name means latch, which I'm telling you, that's about as compelling evidence as you get in this kind of speculation, that Robert Galbraith had planned the series to resolve in 7 books with a crime committed by a sister that completes that ring cycle. And for that, I give you Mrs. Hook and the first case solved in Cuckoo's Calling. And really, the Strike-Ellicott relationship. A woman who attacks Strike when he gives her the bad news about the woman with whom her husband is sleeping. Robin has to peel the enraged woman off Cormoran and console her. A mirror image of the final confrontation with Bristow at the first book's ends. Mrs. Hook is the latch of this series. I don't think it was my sister. I didn't think it was my sister. I thought it was Valerie. I thought it was Valerie, not my own sister. I mean, the Hook case is the latch of Cuckoo's Calling because the poor woman thought it was Valerie, her husband's accountant, which is what they call John Bristow, right? And the Hook case is the latch of the series because Alison Glover is the stepsister who murdered her unsuspected sibling, just as poor Mrs. Hook was blindsided by her own family. Now, that's fun. Okay. And there's more. There's the latch of Robin and Cormoran's relationship. These are the big two. Both Strike and Ellicott in their thoughts in Graves' chapter make this connection explicit. It's really about when we get it's really about Strike and Robin. We start off Cuckoo's Calling, and it's about the beginning of Cuckoo's Calling. Robin has just become engaged to Matt Cunliffe, quite the name, which we parsed somewhere else. And she's over the moon about that, and she gets this job, but she meets Charlotte Campbell coming out of Strike's office, and she almost falls to her death. Strike grabs her by the left breast, by her left breast, pulls her in, and saves her. So there's Robin nursing a wounded breast, and the beginning of the whole story. At the end of Running Grave, we have Robin leaving Strike's office, spinning out of control in a way because he has just revealed to her that he loves her. So we know that's the beginning of Cuckoo's Calling. Robin meets Strike around the Charlotte Campbell thing. Is echoed in the finish of Running Grave, but they're less obvious, but as important markers. In Cuckoo, both scream at their collision, and because of her near-death experience, Strike had saved her from a likely fatal plunge by grabbing a substantial part of her left breast. This is a retelling of Psyche's rescue by Cupid to throw her off a mountaintop. The echo here is that the left breast is over her heart, okay? That this is, his yelling, Jesus Christ is another point into that. All of it speaks of the ant-erotic or selfless sacrificial love that will join them, a painful but profound departure in their spiritual center or heart away from romantic, psychological, and physically grounded erotic love. And then we get that from the statue of Eros, that at least that Robin thinks is the statue of Eros in Piccadilly Square, where she proposes. That's her erotic love, but the statue is of Anteros, not of Eros. The reverse imagery in parallel extends to Robin's arrival at the office. She's just having become engaged the previous night, only hours ago, to her departure engraved for a weekend with the lover to whom Strike expects that she will soon become engaged to. Okay. I like the echoing too of the catapulted backwards in the opening scene and Strike's thoughts of himself in the office just before exposing his heart to his beloved as a trapeze artist, preparing to swing out into the spotlight with only black air beneath him. Will she let him fall or save him? As Strike says to Pat, we'll see. Okay. The big deal here is Charlotte Campbell. You know, Charlotte Campbell shows up, and we get Robin clutching at her left breast. And in Running Grave, what do we get? We get Charlotte Campbell showing her, going in her green dress, coming to Strike and saying that she has breast cancer. Strike does everything he can to help Robin with her red breast. Robin Redbreast. He does nothing to Charlotte. He closes her down when she says that she has breast cancer. He even doubts that she has it, or that he doesn't show her any sympathy, saying that she'll get good care for that with her money. I mean, this is astonishing. All right, those are the two big things. The latch of Mrs. Hook and the opening, the murders.
I love the hook latch. That's great.
And the Robin and Strike relationship. But there's 15. Very quickly, I'm just going to run through this. The prologue in both books is about a case to be solved. Eric Wardle makes an appearance, and they're front and back. The first one, he's eyeing all the women, and he's being unfaithful to his wife, and the last one, his wife has left him because he's unfaithful. As I said, Charlotte Campbell is center stage in both books. Strike reeling from their breakup and coming to terms with what's happened and how she's going to get married, and in the second one, his just cutting her off cold. And literally disposing her, but she's center stage in both books. I mean, she's hounding him with messages. She's, in his dreams. She's everywhere. I've already mentioned the Jesus Christ on the stairs, which is a great one. Strike yells Jesus Christ as he reaches out to grab Robin as she's falling, and at the end of and then who yells Jesus Christ in Running Grave? Midge yells Jesus Christ as she comes into the office where Robin is about to kill Mama Mazu. Okay. Strike at the end of Cuckoo's Calling is murdering, seemingly in self-defense because Bristow has a knife, is murdering him with his leg of all things. He's pounding him. When Robin comes in and prevents him from murdering Bristow, just as Midge yelling, the Lord's name, yelling the Lord's name, she comes in and saves Robin from murdering with a rifle stock Mama Mazu. There's the Bristow error. I mean, we talk about the errors in these books. Bristow keeps the cell phone of Michelle Anafade, which is the evidence that he's that murderer, and he keeps it in his mother's safe, which of course Strike realizes somehow he must be, Charlie Bristow, the ghost, is guiding Strike to these things. Totally off the board, not credible. But in the Glover case, Glover keeps the murdered Purbright boy's laptop and a gun from a thing. It's just like all these things that are the evidence that the case doesn't have any substance except for these stupid murderers keeping, souvenirs. And there's souvenirs obviously in Lethal White as well. Robin pitches for the job at the end of Calling, and at the beginning of Grove, she says, "I'm the only person for this job," Running Grave, to infiltrate the religious cult. We get the dress gift at the end of Cuckoo's Calling, where Strike goes out of his way to astonish Robin in the office, and really. The dress gift goes beyond an appreciation of the job that she's done. It's an affectionate gesture, about her femininity, and she knows his finances. He can't afford it. And at the end of Running Grave, of course, he says that he's in love with her, sort of. The green dress appears, Robin, in the first book, and then Charlotte wears the green dress to her interview about the breast cancer. I mentioned we have the injured and the diseased breasts. We get Jack shooting Cormoran in his visit in Cuckoo's Calling, the pretend gun game, whatever, with the G.I. Joe type figures, and then we have Luke, his other nephew, one of his other nephews, shooting him with a fire tech dart. We have the epigraphs. Well, I want to talk about the epigraphs at the finish here. We have the Norfolk Commune, which is mentioned in the first book as the worst place that he lived, and then it's the greater part of Running Grave. We have the displacement fucks with a brain. Forgive me, that's Ilsa's comment. Kiara Porter is clearly Strike's what do you want to call it? Compensation sex. To assuage his grief about losing Charlotte Campbell. And then he has Bijou Watkins, who Ilsa calls the displacement fuck. Both of these are very, very intelligent women. Both of them Strike uses to act out his psychological issues. And the next to last one is the blown up Pattersons. The law firm that are blown up at the end of Cuckoo's Calling are Landry, May, and Patterson, and the detective agency, which is destroyed at the end of Running Grave, is the Patterson Detective Agency. But the big one to me is the opening epigraphs. Besides, the big things are the murders and the relationship, but the opening epigraphs in Cuckoo's Calling are as well as in Running Grave, are from classical medieval authors. They're about happiness. The prologue to Cuckoo's Calling opens up with Lucius Accius's "Unhappy is he whose fame makes his misfortunes famous." Okay. Part one of Running Grave starts out with the same thing. Boethius, in his Consolation of Philosophy, for in every ill turn of fortune, the most unhappy sort of unfortunate man is the one who has been happy. Strike ends Running Grave reflecting on the Aeschylus quotation he had shared earlier with Amelia Cretin, Charlotte's sister. Happiness is a choice that requires effort at times. Okay. The last words of the seventh book are like the first class quotations of the first book, all about happiness. Okay. And I hope that's some demonstration. I know people that aren't into the structure, maybe they just think that's all fantasy. But to me, that's deliberate shed type artistry that shows that when she was writing the first book, she understood what was going to be in the fourth book. And I'll put links up for that. And the seventh book as the latch to the series. There's no way this was just an arbitrary thing she did so that Strike would solve the Lulu Landry case and become a famous author. That case is the centerpiece of the whole thing. Whew.
Wow. So you've convinced me, and so you don't think that Joe looked at the Silkworm, looked at Cuckoo's Calling, and thought, "Wait, no, I can't do that. There's no latch. There's no latch. Wait, if I swap these round, that could have happened." So next tomorrow we've got Silkworm, so we've got the novel about publishing.
Wait, where are you going to go on the lake with this one?
So there's some examples of in Strike's life of literary feuding, not so much coming from Rowling, but people feuding with her. So I'm gonna look at real life examples of literary feuding with J.K. Rowling and a Hogwarts Professor exclusive. I think I've got a theory as to who the mysterious Jenkins is in the dedication to Silkworm. Now, this is something we've been pondering for a long time, John.
We've been. Gosh. Yeah, you're so generous. I love it. But anyway, my shed contributions are the Silkworm, because it is the point of origin. This was the first Strike mystery in Rowling's mind. Has to be considered to be the foundation of the series. It may not be the first in terms of the ring structure and this and that, but it has to be considered. She said it was 7 or 8 years before she started writing it, and she had to have been starting writing it at the latest 2013. I assume 2010. So she was still writing the Potter novels when she came up with the Silkworm idea of Strike and Ellicott and that relationship-driven detective series. I'm going to look at that and how the novel within a novel within a novel, whatever is key to understanding this entire series.
That should be great. I'm looking forward to it. See you tomorrow, John.
I gotta go mow the lawn. I got my dirty shirt on here to go mow the lawn here. Take care, Nick.